and I'll make a little bit of progress, or what I think is a little bit of progress, and then I'll hit that wall. And I'll realize I probably should have been praying all along. Probably should have been praying all along. Henry Blackaby, in his book or study, Experiencing God, basically says the premise of the study, and if you haven't done it, you should take the opportunity when it affords itself. In his study, he basically says that the task of the people of God is not to rush out and do God's work. That the task of the people of God is to discern through prayer and Scripture and worship and fellowship, to discern where God is already at work and then join Him there. And that any other paradigm is going to fail. Do you like that paradigm? I try to throw in one of those words. Means 20 cents. Paradigm, right?
Oh, no.
That's why I don't do it all the time. A God-sized task. If you don't attempt the God-sized task in God's power and authority and timing, it can lead to disaster. And as we continue to look at the life of Moses, it bears that out. If you were here last week, we looked at the birth of Moses and the way God manipulated people and events to have Moses not raised as a slave, but in fact raised as a prince of Egypt, to in fact not be killed and destroyed by the Nile, but in fact to find new life in the waters of the Nile. But as Moses reached adulthood, he began to realize, or the realization within him grew, that he was not an Egyptian, that he was a Hebrew, and he began to identify with his people. And they were in bondage. They were in bitter bondage and slavery. And Moses, when faced with the God-sized task of freeing God's people from slavery, attempted to do something about it on his own and failed miserably. If we were to read chapter 3 all the way, or chapter 2 all the way through, you would find out that in his own strength and in his own power, what Moses decides to do is in fact kill an Egyptian who was oppressing his people. And even his own people did not want that type of deliverer, and say to him, as he attempts to be a moderator between two people that are arguing, "What, are you going to kill us too?" And Moses realizes that he can no longer stay in Egypt and flees to the region known as Midian, which was probably named after the cousins of the Hebrews, the Midianites. But he goes to Midian and raises or works as a shepherd for 40 years, and we pick up today's scripture, which is Exodus chapter 3, verses 1 through 14. Now Moses was tending the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. And he led the flock to the far side of the desert and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire from within the bush. Moses saw that though the bush was on fire, it did not burn up. So Moses thought, "I will go over and see this strange sight, why the bush does not burn up." When the Lord saw that Moses had come over to look, God called to him from the bush, "Moses, Moses." And Moses said, "Here am I." "Do not come any closer," God said. "Take off your sandals, for the place that you are standing is holy ground." Then he said, "I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob." At this, Moses hid his face because he was afraid to look at God. The Lord said, "I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the hands of the Egyptians and bring them out of that land into a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey, the home of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Pezerites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. And now the cry of the Israelites has reached me, and I have seen the way the Egyptians are oppressing them. So now go, I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people out of Egypt." And Moses said to God, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring out your people from Egypt?" And God said, "I will be with you, and this will be a sign so to you that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, they will worship God on this mountain. Moses said to God, suppose I say to the Israelites, the God of your fathers has sent me, and they ask me, what is his name? What do I tell them? God said to Moses, I am who I am. That is what you are to say to the Israelites. I am has sent you. Do you remember your first meeting with important people in your life? The first time that I met Jennifer, my impression was, wow, she looks nice in that blue dress. We actually still have the blue dress at home. And because she looked nice in the blue dress, and when I was in college, that was enough for me. I tried to impress her with my wit and style, and even held my stomach in. And it didn't work. And she wasn't interested in me, and she ignored me. And was even rude to me when I would approach her. And the reason was that what I was thinking of as our first meeting was in fact our second meeting. That we had met about a year before this. And this is the part, if you feel the need to laugh out loud when I say this, because it's going to seem ridiculous to you. When she first met me, she thought I was a shallow, insignificant jerk. I was shocked to find out too. Apparently, and it was one of those things that after we talked, I remembered, and this is a bad thing to do when you want to impress someone you want to ask out. She said, don't you remember that night at Flags? Flags was a restaurant that we kind of hung out at. And I said, huh? And she said, remember I was there with Diane and you were, and I went, oh no, that was you? I was out with some friends at this restaurant Flags where we hung out. And we got a phone call from another friend, and she said, you guys are at Flags, I'm going to come by, I've got a couple of friends I want you to meet. And Jennifer was one of those friends, and if you got to know her, you know that she's not loud and boastful and doesn't dominate a conversation like some people. And if you've gotten to know me, you know that if I'm around people that I'm comfortable with, I kind of like being the center of attention. So apparently at our first meeting, I was being funny. I was making jokes. And she didn't think I was funny. She thought I was a jerk. So when we met the second time, I had my work cut out for me. Because not only did I have to overcome those natural barriers that God had put into my life to keep me from being a bad magnet, I had to repair the damage that I had done in our first meeting. We laugh about that first meeting a lot. I'm glad she's a forgiving person. I did get a little bit of revenge the first time that I met her parents. You know how when you begin to know that this is sort of this is going to be more than a casual relationship, and you have to do that awful meet the parents for the first time thing. And so I was already sweating when I got out of the car, go to the front door, knock on the door, go inside their living room, meet her father, meet her mother, meet her brother, and then I realized that I hear this noise in the background. And what I'm hearing, her father, some of you met my father-in-law a few months back when they visited, I was hearing the sound of about 15 clocks. The man collected clocks, and they were all over the living room wall and the dining room wall, and it was like walking into a clock shop. And while I'm explaining to this person why I want to date his daughter, I'm hearing tick, 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 all over the room. It was awful. It turns out they're pretty nice people, and in fact, they accepted me. And after 25 wonderful years, we're still going strong. But your first impression, say what?
I got over it.
We got over it. First meetings can be important.